So, welcome to the Healthy Leader Expert Forum. This is where we just get honest about what healthy leadership actually takes. And of course, we start with the most important relationship of all, and the most important leadership, which is the leadership of yourself. And so, we talk specifically about mental, emotional, and physical health, energy, and drumroll performance. And today's guest is the ultimate expert on performance. He spent his career working with people who have had to perform under the highest pressure there is, from sports fields, the fields of friendly strife, to literally to battlefields. And it is my sincerest pleasure to introduce Dr. Nate Zinsser.
Tracy, it's a delight to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to your questions and the questions from the greater gang.
Absolutely. So I have to do a proper introduction and say that you were the director of the performance psychology program at the United States Military Academy for 27 years. You,
30 years.
30.
30,
I
yeah.
stand corrected, 30.
Okay.
Great. Yes. And on top of that, you have been a sports psychology mentor for elite athletes, including two-time Super Bowl MVP Eli Manning, the Philadelphia Flyers, and many Olympians and NCAA champions. I also did not know this, but you've consulted for the FBI, the U.S.
Correct.
Army Recruiting Command, the
Correct.
New York Fire City Department,
Correct.
and I'll have to say that you hold a PhD in sports psychology from UVA. Both my sisters went to UVA. And you are the author of The Confident Mind, a battle tested, really, a battle tested guide to unshakable performance. I am so delighted to have you here.
Likewise, I'm just as delighted to be here. Let's get rocking.
Let's get rocking. Okay, so tell me first and foremost how you actually came to write this amazing book, The Confident Mind.
That book was gestating in me for well over a decade. Um, and I settled on the confidence theme because of the number of cadets, West Point cadets, who came into my office
Mm,
and said, "Gosh, I've lost all my confidence." And I proceeded to ask them, "Well, what do you know about confidence and what's the source of confidence?" Yada, yada, yada.
mhm,
They all said, "Well, confidence is a function of your experience." And they
mm,
would, and then I would ask them about their experience, and they would proceed to rattle off, "Well, I was my class valedictorian, and I was the captain of two sports in high school, and I was the state champ at this or state champ at that." And they would proceed to rattle off this wonderful list of accomplishments and this vast body of experience. And then I'd scratch my head and say, "Wait a minute, you just told me confidence is a function of your experience,
mm,
and you obviously have a whole lot of experience. But at the same time, you're telling me that your confidence is kind of zeroed out. I guess there must be something more to it than just the experience." So because of the frequency of that kind of conversation and the real need that these young, well-meaning, hardworking men and women had, I really had to focus on this particular aspect of human performance.
mhm.
So it was many, many years of evenings, weekends, time on leave, to bring this to fruition.
So you speak to something that is really important in terms of experiences versus your internal confidence. So how do you define the difference?
Well, it's wonderful to have experience. It's wonderful to have done things. But unless you conclude or interpret from what you have done that you now have capability, that you now have certainty, your experience is somewhat meaningless. You can have great experience, but unless you interpret it, use it, take advantage of it cognitively, um, it doesn't do much for you. Uh, so you really have to, I use this analogy all the time. You have to filter your experience. All kinds of things happen. And you have a free will internally. It's,
Mm,
you have this filter. It's called free will. You have it. You have to exercise your free will such that you allow the particular experiences that build energy and optimism and enthusiasm to reside in your long-term memory. And when you do that consistently enough, and there are several aspects to this, when you do it consistently enough, you build a sense of certainty about yourself. And that sense of certainty is somewhat independent of success or lack of success. It's
Mm.
much more tied to how you interpret your success and or lack of success.
I love it. It's simple, but not easy.
Well, yes, it is simple, but it is not necessarily easy given so many of the cultural and social rules that we grow up with. Uh,
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
a question for a long, long conversation. Maybe we can get into some of it.
Well, it's interesting because I'm filtering this through the leaders that I work with who have had strong experiences. We're just talking to two neonatologists who've been in it for 20 years, each of them. And they both were talking about their confidence as leaders. And so I love the distinction between your external experience, which is something very different. We call that the X that's out there versus the internal piece.
Hmm.
And so there's so many great gold nuggets of what you just said when you described it, but I want to latch on to the idea of building it consistently. And that's really what this entire book is about and how to build it. So
And
so you first start off with the bank account and building the bank account. So could you speak to that a little bit?
yeah, sure. Um, I I conceptualize confidence, this quality of certainty about oneself, as essentially a running total, a constantly ever-changing total of everything that you think about yourself, everything that you think about in terms of your work or your profession or your art or your craft, your sport, um, and everything you think about all the things that happen in that context. So all those thoughts, all those memories, all those stories you tell yourself, all those visions and short video clips that you might have about various kinds of future, all those thoughts collectively
Mm.
define your confidence. That being the case, if you truly want to act with certainty, you got to be very careful about how you think about yourself and your work and everything that happens in your work, because all those thoughts are going into this um, repository that you can think of as a bank account.
Hmm.
And if you think the kinds of things that build energy and optimism and enthusiasm, well, you increase your bank account. If you entertain thoughts in the opposite direction, your bank account draws down. So you got to build it systematically and you've got to protect it from, as Shakespeare put it, the slings and arrows of outraged fortune. And then you got to be able to bring it out when it matters.
So the very first quote that you have, and it's even before the book starts, is from Sun Tzu, from The Art of War. And you say, victorious warriors win first,
Yeah,
and then they go to war.
that's right.
And then while defeated warriors go to war first, and then they seek to win. Tell me about that quote and how that fits in with what you're talking about.
Well, I actually envisioned the title of this book to be The First Victory, referring precisely to what Sun Tzu spoke out there. Okay, you have to create a sense of certainty about yourself before you enter the fray. If you just enter the fray and you hope for the best, well, you might get lucky and you might not. You will always increase your odds, if you will, by
Hmm.
having a sense of certainty. This is how it can go. These are the resources at my disposal. This is my plan to execute. I believe in this. I'm going to trust this. I'm going to act as if it's already kind of turned out well. And that certainty gives me the most accurate reactions. It allows me to process incoming information quicker. It allows me to retrieve necessary
Mm.
memories. and stratagems faster. Um, and it certainly speeds up the whole processing, the whole execution process.
I noticed that every time I saw first victory in the book, I circled it. I mean, you say it quite often, the first victory, the
Yeah,
first victory, the first victory. And it's become a little bit of a mantra for me personally, just
right.
whatever is right in front of you and managing your mind. So to tie that to the bank account, I
Sure.
love how you set that up in terms of the past, the present, and the future. There's so much good information. Everybody listening here, you're just going to have to read the book yourself. And I'm interested to know for you, Dr. Z, out of all of the great nuggets that you use, which one do you think fits best for the executives that you work with?
Okay. If you want to build a bank account of certainty about yourself, and I don't care if you are a executive, an orthopedic surgeon, uh, an, a professional football, basketball, baseball player, whatever your field of endeavor is, the most the most important basic exercise to be consistent with
Hmm,
is a daily reflection that includes the question, where did I put in honest effort today? What little successes did I achieve? And what do I seem to be making progress in? Answering those three questions on a daily basis and having some archive of your answers um, is pretty much the deadlift equivalent for confidence building, you know? If you're going to do one exercise in the gym and you only can do one exercise, you do the deadlift because it hits a whole lot of muscles. If you're
right.
going to do one thing about building greater certainty about yourself, it's this daily ESP, effort, success, progress, reflection, which takes people 5 minutes. It ain't a big deal.
It is
It's
not a big
it's
deal.
doable.
It's doable. And here's okay, so that is my favorite exercise. I have to tell you, I do a daily reflection at the end. We ponder at the end of the day the reflection.
Hmm.
And the very interesting thing for me is the discernment between success and progress. So can you
Gotcha.
describe all three because I think they're all magical.
Okay, sure. We'll start with E for effort. Where did you put in quality effort? What did you do today that you knew you had to do and you didn't necessarily want to do it, but you deserve a little pat on the back for putting in the effort to get it done. Maybe it was just slugging through the inbox, or maybe it was, oh, I gotta send that follow-up message to so and so. Oh, I gotta check on so and so. I don't want to check on so and so. So and so is a pain in the butt, but I gotta do it. So, you do these things and you got to give yourself a little credit for that. Every one of those little actions, every one of those expressions
Mm,
of effort, those episodes of effort, that's a small deposit into the bank account. That memory is goes into the repository. It's something that you can be real proud of. Okay, it's
mm,
not a big deal. But when you do these consistently over time, they add up. Okay, so that brings us to item two, S. E for effort, S for success, small success. What did you get right?
mm,
I answered this person's question properly. I was um, I completed 8 out of 10 three-point shots from this part of the court. Okay. I got that right. I did a little something just today.
mm,
Again, it's not a big deal, but it's these little kinds of things. What did I get right? What tiny little accomplishment can I look back and say, oh yeah, good for me. I got that. All right. So that's very much something that happened today. And that brings us to P, progress, effort, success, progress. Progress, as you reflect on it at the end of the day, includes what happened today and maybe what happened the day before. What, in a more general sense, am I getting better at?
Mm.
Oh, I'm getting better at handling my email traffic. Oh, I'm getting better at dealing with so and so or dealing with those so and so's, plural. Even if I only got, even if I only, had a success with one,
Right.
I'm getting better dealing with that situation in more general terms. Okay. So that's how they sort of break out. If you had an experience that contributes to an overall sense of energy for yourself, optimism about your future, enthusiasm for what you're doing,
Mm.
notate that somewhere. Okay. Very simple to keep it on a spiral bound notebook.
Hmm.
Um, it's not complicated, but boy, can it change your orientation.
Totally. And the interesting thing for me personally, I was surprised at how many negative withdrawals I had going on in my mind. If I said, you know what, I actually did send that email, I did spend that extra half hour on my book. And I say, yeah, but you
Mhm.
didn't get XYZ done. And so being able to say, well, I learned how to push through something, which was progress. I got better at pushing through something and I was successful at XYZ. That was a big deal to be able to tell the difference for me
Right.
personally.
Yeah. Well, there have been so many of these various clients that I've worked with um, who have found this daily ESP reflection to truly be a game changer.
Mm,
These are folks who went to business school or they went to law school and they've been engaged in the daily world of work for
mm,
decades, and they always went home thinking, I didn't get this done. I messed that up. What's going to happen? And just, okay, if you have to do that, please look at your quality effort, look at your small successes, look at your progress as sort of a neutralizing effort.
mm.
And maybe you'll discover that you don't have to beat yourself up over the stuff that you didn't get done. Uh,
Yeah.
and I'm I'm pretty sure that your teammates, that the people you work with will notice, hey, he's not as grumpy as he used to be. That makes the workplace a little better.
Yeah, a lot better. What do you say to leaders who say, well, when I'm hard on myself, then I work harder and I get things done. And that's how I got to where I am right now.
Hmm. I say, great. That's how you got to where you are now. And okay, you use this to get to where you are now. I'm wondering if you could have gotten there quicker. I wonder if you could have gotten there with less agony. Okay.
Mm,
Being hard on yourself and reflecting on setbacks and difficulties and beating yourself up over them, it can indeed create this sort of flush of energy. Yeah, it could do that.
mhm,
But
mhm,
it also creates a negative emotional residue. It also physically tightens the body. It also pumps cortisol into your bloodstream, which means that the interior of your arteries are being eaten away. So
mm.
yeah, you might feel like, oh yeah, I need to get stuff done. But in the longer sense of the word, you're compromising yourself. And this is a real kicker. Ask yourself honestly, ladies and gentlemen, do you feel more fired up and motivated and excited about your future when you recall setbacks and beat yourself up? Or do you feel more energized and motivated when you think about your highlights, your successes, your progress? What genuinely creates a greater level of energy and what creates that energy elevation with the minimum of tension, with the minimum of, emotional residue? It's like anger and frustration is indeed a fuel. It's a very dirty burning fuel.
Mm,
It's like diesel as opposed to, I guess, solar generated electricity, which is a lot cleaner. You can run a car on it, you can run a house on it. Both those form energy, but one's a lot cleaner than the other. Take your pick.
right. Oh, I love that explanation. That's so powerful. That's going to be the clip of the podcast so far. That is amazing because, as you know, we double red underline something that's super, super important. And as you talk about in the book, and I'm sure some of the people here have read the relaxation response from the 70s, right? Um, and we know the impact that this negativity, this mind body connection
Hmm.
has. Why do you think it is so difficult for people to really latch onto this and to get this? Why isn't this just basic knowledge?
It it is a long-term cultural slash social force. Okay. A
Mm,
great part of this country's history was the influx of Protestants from Northern Europe. And a fundamental tenet in that particular version of spirituality is that if you work really hard, God's going to reward you. So we have taken it as, in many cases, an unspoken but still absorbed
mm,
cultural touch point that we got to work harder. We got to be strict with ourselves. That is a way to success and happiness and spiritual fulfillment. Um, it's an okay place to start,
mm.
but it's only going to get you halfway, two-thirds of the way. That last 20-30% of success and fulfillment is going to come from something else besides just hard work, nose to the grindstone. I never want to put work and toughness on yourself in a bad light. That's not the bad guy in the story necessarily. It's just when it's that and only that, and you neglect these other sources of energy that
Mm.
you begin to compromise yourself, at least in my opinion.
Well, so it's interesting because another phenomena for me as I'm reading this is there's many, many West Point examples. And being a graduate, you got there right after I graduated, unfortunately. And I felt myself being very envious of the cadets who got to experience this. So, based off of what you just said, that's a little bit different than no pain, no gain, and quite a bit of the West Point culture, right? So, how was that when you were at West Point in terms of shifting the culture up a little bit?
Well, I never tried to shift the culture. I did have to deal with the culture and have
Mm,
people understand this is the reason why the culture exists. This is what it does. Let's be really honest about how well it is working for you now. Is it indeed moving you toward the person you want to be,
mm,
the achievements that are important to you? Is it helping you if it's important to you to make the dean's list, to be ranked really high academically for the purpose of medical school or a Marshall Scholarship? Is it helping you in the
mm.
physical realm as you prepare for the beloved indoor obstacle course test?
Oh, the IOCT.
Survival swimming. Is it helping you athletically? You're participating in a Division I sport. You may have some goals and aspirations. I want to be all Patriot League. I want to be all American. I want to make it to the world-class athlete program and train for the Olympics and represent the USA. Uh, is your attitude, is the way that you think about your uh, effort, success, progress, and the way you
Mm,
think about your setbacks and your disappointments, is that combination helping you move forward? Is it making you more certain about yourself? And that requires some honesty, you
mm.
know?
So the
Mhm.
ability to get honest about where you are, where you've been, where you are, and where you want to go. leads me to think about the vision and how important that is, and your distinction between the vision and envisioning,
Yeah.
envisioning.
People have talked about visualizing certain outcomes and certain, performances, especially in sports. I try to see myself doing it. I my training in this led me to really think about not just picturing something that you want, but engaging in a real detailed, multi-sensory virtual reality of it. Can I see myself hitting that winning point in the tennis match? Do I feel the racket in my hand? Do I hear the pop of the ball off my racket? Do I feel my body swing through it? And then do I actually feel the elation of having won that point? Trying to create a multi-sensory experience that you hopefully want to have. And if you can do that with sufficient detail, sensory detail, movement detail, emotional detail,
Mm,
if you do that consistently, um, significant parts of your nervous system don't really understand that you're not on the tennis court, uh, that you are somewhere else. The the brain and the body, to a certain extent, don't distinguish between a vividly imagined situation and an actual situation. It's a pretty fascinating area of neuroscience that we've really only cracked into in the last decade or so.
and as we are practicing that, that takes a lot of mental focus, the ability to only stay on your vision.
Hmm.
And so when you have people come into your office or you're working with people and they've created this vision, what are some of the tips that you give to them when their mind starts to take a right turn and say, yeah, but this isn't working? How do you help them stay in that vision?
To a certain extent, we are all very distractible human beings. Uh, there is nothing wrong with a distraction as long as you're willing to come back to it. All right. So I try to break it up into manageable chunks. Just see if you can stay with the feeling of hitting your serve, seeing the return to your serve, seeing the next shot that you hit, seeing the shot that comes back, and then you hitting the winner. Okay? Just relatively short. Okay?
Hmm.
Some of my students have developed considerable endurance in terms of their envisioning. I
Mm.
tell the story in the book of Dan Brown, class of 1997, I think, um, who was able to envision each and every step of a mile run in his pursuit of the very first sub 4 minute mile ever run at West Point. He did this in our training center on Thursday, and on Saturday, he ran the same damn time that he had envisioned,
That
but
blew me
that's
away.
4 minutes, that's really sustained, you know.
And,
Um,
and it was two, like the 1/100th of a
Oh
second.
yeah, it was pretty much the exact same time that he had envisioned. Okay, because he had a sense of this is where I'm going to run. This is how I'm going to start out. These are the splits I'm going to hit. I know what my turnover has to be in order to hit those splits. And he was just very, very exact in terms of this is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to be. And that is how it turned out. Kind of a cool story.
Powerful, powerful. So let's expand that. Now it's not just one individual running on a track, but he's sitting in a meeting.
Mm.
He's got other people around who are interrupting or whatever it is that's coming in and interrupting while you're trying to play your game. What about then?
The really important trick in that situation is to start the meeting with a sense of how you want to be throughout. Okay? And this is where you have to know yourself a little bit, and
Mm,
you've got to have been honest about how do I want to be in these kinds of conversations, in these kinds of negotiations, in these kinds of settings? Okay, what really works, and am I willing to think about myself as being that kind of person in this kind of situation? So you've got a touchstone, an
Mm.
anchor, a reference point that you can come back to when things do start getting chaotic, when you do start spinning out and you're looking out the window and you realize, oh, geez, I'm not connected to the con. Okay, how do I want to be? What's my mantra here? What's my touchstone? Now I'm back in. Okay.
Love it. Love it. You know, it's interesting because one of the very first things that we do with our individual clients is ask them to create a vision statement and who do you want to be
Yeah.
when you're alone, when you're in your private relationships, when you're with your family, and then who do you want to be in that meeting professionally or in that particular setting, and that's foundational. Who do you
Mhm.
want to be? Who are you being? Which links back to something that you touched on earlier in terms of when you show up, when you are doing your practices, when you're doing your ESP practice, when you actually are doing these deposits, other people notice you differently. So you speak a little bit. I was especially intrigued by your case study with Deion Sanders. And then at the end, you talk about team with him. And I'll just ask you a generic question about what type of impact have you seen people who are actually working through this, what impact do they have on their teams and the people they're around and their families? What have you seen?
Um, what I have seen and what I've been told is that these people are quite different.
Mm,
They are slower to anger. They are um, they're more consistent with their focus on the right kinds of things. Okay. Um, when I began my work with Eli Manning of the New York Giants,
mhm,
everybody was impressed with his work ethic, but he didn't quite have, in his head coach's terms, the swagger and the command
mm,
that his coaches wanted from their very expensive and very highly touted quarterback.
mhm,
Okay. Uh, but within a while, after about 8 months of consistent work, people were noticing, oh, this is a different Eli Manning. He literally walks into the huddle differently, and these are sportscasters who are saying, wait a minute, this is not the same. This guy is different.
mm,
Okay. So there's more of a calmness. There's more of a sense of command, if you will. It doesn't mean that they don't fly off the handle once in a while,
sure.
but there is, in general, a greater sense, a greater degree of calm, a greater sense of command, a greater sense that, hey, no matter what happens, we're okay. We're gonna work through this, you know? That is palpable
Mm,
in people who do the work to build this sense of certainty. And I gotta stress, do the work. Okay. Um, I have one client who competes in the rather obscure sport of axe throwing.
interesting.
There are regional tournaments, there is a national championship, there is a world axe throwing championship every year. I believe it's in Toronto.
That's
Okay.
great.
And this particular individual has worked very hard in terms of stacking up his daily ESPs, envisioning exactly how he wants to perform, anticipating here's a difficulty that could take place in this setting, here's how I'm going to handle it. He has really done the work. Uh, and the people he competes against have noticed, oh, he's different. He's not the same guy he used to be. So we're talking both changes that are observable from the outside and certainly changes that the individual notices about him or herself on the inside.
Makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
A story that I don't have in this book uh, is about another grad. Um, his name is Ben Harrow. He's class of, I'm going to say 2001, 2004, somewhere in there. The years mix up in my long-term memory. Um, I knew Ben Harrow. He was a member of our men's lacrosse team. He was a standout player. He branched infantry. He went Ranger School, Special Forces assessment. He became a Special Forces officer, served many deployments. And on one of his deployments in Afghanistan, an improvised explosive device blew off both his legs. He had to have both of his legs amputated above the knee. Usually, if you have one below the knee and one above the knee, they can fit you with prosthetics and you can get along. Well, he had lost his legs, both legs above the knee. And so, I'm sorry, Captain, you're confined for a wheelchair. We can't fit you with prosthetics. And Ben Harrow had a sense of himself that did not include being wheelchair bound forever. I'm a special forces officer. I'm a Division I athlete. I'm going to find a way out of this. And he did. He actually researched ways of growing his compromised thigh bones, femurs, back. And he found, I'm not making this up, he found a procedure
Wow.
that was pioneered in China, whereby young girls had their shins repeatedly broken and reset so that they would grow longer so that they could be fashion models.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, wow. Ben Harrow researched this. He found a doctor in, I believe it was Minnesota, who would supervise this procedure for him. He underwent 6 or 8 of these surgeries over a period of a couple of years. And the doctor said, yeah, maybe we'll get an inch and a half. They grew back like 4. He set a record at the time. And this procedure is now being used at Walter Reed and other procedures for other amputees. Ben Harrow was able to get himself fitted with prosthetics, and he was able to play a commemorative Army Navy alumni lacrosse game in the goal. You know,
Wow.
he can't really run, but I have seen him. He's come back to West Point. He's come back to the lacrosse locker room. He's walked in on his prosthetics. And it all started with, this is the guy I am. I am not a cripple. I am this kind of guy. And so the question, how do I handle all this crazy stuff, is your commitment to yourself. And it's not so much a how-to process, it's just a definition and a willingness process.
Wow. That is powerful.
Yeah, you can look up Ben Harrow inside Lacrosse Magazine for all the details and photos.
Wow. That is crazy. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I will look him up. That's amazing. That is amazing. I don't know what else to say after that. That's like the most amazing story I've ever heard. Um, okay, so, but what I will do for the next is I'm going to go to a couple of the audience questions.
Please.
Um, and I'm going to start actually with somebody I know. She went to the Naval Academy, and she says that many high performing leaders have built their careers using self criticism as fuel.
Mhm.
How can they distinguish between the internal dialogue that drives excellence and then the kind that quietly erodes confidence and performance over time?
Mhm. How do you distinguish between the dialogue that builds and the dialogue that erodes? Okay. Um, Look at the structure of the language.
Hmm.
look at the use of you are not, you have not, you do not. Just look at those, just look at the structure of those statements and understand that the brain, in a very significant way, doesn't understand negation, you know? So when you say, no, don't do this, you know, don't do that, avoid these bad behaviors, what you're actually doing is stimulating the brain to recover associations to those very, very bad, to those very same bad behaviors. Okay.
Hmm. Don't think of a
Um,
pink elephant.
yeah, exactly. It's the same deal. The only way your brain can make sense of that statement, whether it's something that is said to you, something that you say out loud, or something that you just entertain within yourself,
Hmm.
brain's going to take it quite literally. So, and to get back to the question, how do you distinguish between, constructive criticism and destructive self-talk? Just look at the structure of the language and what is it making you think of? What is it making you think of? Is it making you think of improvement? Is it making you think of setback?
Mm.
What's just the initial impulse after making that kind of statement for yourself? Um, again, this requires some honesty.
Mm. Right. Some strong self-reflection. Um, I have another live question here from, I think it's from Dr. Frisnia. How universal are the six pillars of confidence? Will they work for everyone, especially those people with cognitive deficits in self-worth, self-esteem, and people lacking
Mm.
a positive cognitive behavior baseline launching
Yeah,
point? Mm,
yeah. Um, I'll be the first to admit that not everything works for everybody all the time,
mm,
but I think one or two of them are probably going to work for you. Uh, so become the best in the world at that. All you need to do is one or two little things better than everybody else. You don't have to do everything better than
hmm.
anybody else. But if you can just do one or two things better than everybody else, you might be putting yourself in a position to be really successful. All right. So in terms of universality, I'm not going to say that, all of these pillars are going to work for everybody all the time. But
Hmm.
there's probably one or two that'll work for you. Get really good at that one. You're going to be better off doing that than not participating in any of this. Hope that
Well,
answers the good doctor's question.
it sounds like it does to me. It's interesting. He said, "Pluck my one-string guitar really well." I love it.
Well, I have seen some street musicians that play remarkable tunes on a one-string guitar. It can be done.
Well, and I'll add on to that that this is your book is chock a block full of so many practices, and I'm going to practice all of them, but maybe they're not all for everybody. But definitely, this is a good plug for the book to see what might work for you. And
Indeed.
to that end, I want to put in one of my own questions, which is: are there some practices? This book is 4 years old now that have come up for you that are newer that you have for the audience that aren't in the book?
Yeah, there are a couple later breaking modifications. I'll share this with your audience that um, deadlift confidence building process, the ESP.
Mm.
Okay, do that. But if you want to take it just a tiny step further, we can add a fourth letter. We got the E for effort, the S for small success, the P for progress, and the N, ESPN. I know people can remember that. The N stands for next. What do I want to get after tomorrow? I put the effort here. I got a little success there. I'm making progress there. What's next? What do I want to get after? That could be something very, very specific. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., I'm going to nail this presentation, or tomorrow I'm going to add another set to my lower body workout or something. What do
Hmm.
I want to get after tomorrow? What's next for me? ESPN.
Love it. Right. Building, keeping it going.
Yeah, and that that helps a lot of people who are uncomfortable looking for the best in themselves. I'm a little uncomfortable complimenting myself for effort and success and progress. I need to kind of feed that uh, workaholic in me. Okay, well, you can feed that a little. What are you excited about getting after tomorrow? What are you committing to doing tomorrow? Well, it's this. Okay, good. So now you got your daily ESPN,
Love
and
it.
the N sets you up for, oh, did you put effort into your N? Did you get any success with respect to the N? Are you making progress with respect to that N? So there's just one example of something that's relatively new. That's not so much in the book.
I love it. I love it. And to keep building on what you're doing every night. Yeah, that's powerful. We've got an orthodontist here who's building his business and he's building his practice, and he says, "What has been your little personal here, your biggest obstacle, and how did you overcome it?"
My biggest obstacle, my biggest obstacle is fighting off the idea that at age 71 and a half,
Mm,
I I'm just getting old and I have to sort of accept this sort of physical slowdown in myself. Uh, I'm not so blind to think that I'm going to be the same at the same level of physicality that I was 20 years ago, 40 years ago, 60 years ago.
hmm.
Um, but the obstacle I face is just accepting that, okay, uh, I might not recover fully from hip replacements, knee replacements, shoulder surgery, etc., etc. I got to fight that little bit of, oh, you're just getting old, doc. You know?
Hmm.
Yeah, no. I feel like Ben Harrow did not accept the fact that he was going to be confined to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. He said, "No, that ain't me. I've got my own kind of little version of that same thing, you know. I'm not the partially blind, partially deaf, kind of bald little old man, you know.
Right, right.
I'm still a little more vital than that, and I've got to keep contributing toward that."
Well, okay. So then we didn't even touch on affirmations, right? Affirming what is. And so just that example brings out the reality plus your affirmation. So what are you affirming and how are you balancing the reality of, the biological age with what you're affirming?
I'm still affirming the fact that I am active, good role model for my kids and my grandkid. I'm affirming that I'm curious about, okay, um, how is that reconstructed knee gonna feel today? There's a degree of curiosity about it as opposed to resignation. Oh, I got this replaced knee. It's always gonna be a
Mhm.
little bit swollen, a little bit clunky. Um,
Right.
so even for people, seniors like myself, uh,
Hmm.
you got to keep thinking about what you want as if you got it, you know?
Yeah, and let's go to that part. As if you've got it. I have to say that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that in terms of future affirming what has not actually become yet. And
Right.
using, yeah, so speak to that piece in terms of, oh, come on, let's be realistic.
Let's be realistic. Let's think about what already is and what already has been. The insistence upon realism and realistic thinking is very often a disguise for just thinking negatively about oneself and one's world. Um, Not that you can affirm, oh, I'm going to sprout wings and fly,
Right.
but is it is it unrealistic to think that you can be a really reliable member of a team and a subject matter expert in a certain subdiscipline of your profession? Um, that that may that may not be unrealistic, okay? Um, Rather than think of it, as, well, I'm just being realistic.
Hmm.
How about, okay, what possibilities am I opening myself up to?
Right.
Okay. If
Possible.
I have a preconceived idea that this is how something is, then I am going to act according to that.
Hmm.
And then the resulting experience is going to confirm the pre-existing conviction that I brought to the situation. Okay,
Right.
now if that's what you want, fine. Okay. But if you would like change,
Hmm.
perhaps think about the change as existing right now. That change means that there's action, different action on your part, and that different action on your part might indeed bring about the change that you so desire. Um, this is tough for a lot of people because we're all, we've been we've been schooled in realism. Okay.
Right. Right.
We have to be very careful about all that. But I'm okay with I'm okay with that process. Um, the basketball player who claims I'm just being realistic about myself when she hesitates to affirm I am 100% dependable at the foul line is
Right.
simply maintaining a negative self-image based upon memories of missed shots. So there is a unintended but nonetheless real negative self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, that same player could look back at her entire personal history and could find a whole lot of memories of making foul shots. You know, so the shots that were made are just as real as the ones that were missed, and they can serve every bit as much as the basis for a self-image and a more constructive, self-fulfilling prophecy for anyone. Okay?
I
So
love it.
you got to be careful about that. And I think when you give it significant thought, it turns out that it's okay. And the people say, yeah, I can't do that. I'm just lying to myself. Okay? Well, are you lying to yourself about your shortcomings the same way you think that you're lying to yourself about some new level of achievement? What's really true here, ladies and gentlemen? Uh,
Oh,
we could get into serious existential uh, discussions on that.
yes, yes, we could. We could for sure. It's interesting because the power with which you say that, I'm like really restraining myself because I'm like, yes, yes, it's so great to have somebody um, with your experience and your stature and your realism, your authenticity to say, watch how you're choosing, watch your thoughts, watch who you are being. It's
Because there are ripple effects at every level. You
every
know,
level.
your thoughts become your habits become your actions become your destiny, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. We are almost at the 1 hour mark. I do not want to stop here, but I also want to honor our time. And I want to thank you so much for being here. And before we sign off, I wanted to ask you one last question that we ask all of our esteemed guests, and that is, at the Healthy Leader Group, we define healthy leadership mentally, emotionally, and physically. Those are our three core capacities that we talk about. So,
Mhm.
for you, in addition to maybe the hip replacement, how are you being a healthy leader right now in your own life?
How am I being a healthy leader in my own life? I I wake up in the morning and I go out into the sunshine,
Mm.
whatever sunshine there might be. I breathe really big. I express gratitude for everything that I've got in my life. And it's a lot. I have to say everything because if I tried to itemize it, I'd be there for a really long time, you know? Um, and then throughout the day, I I catch myself slipping down into potential negativities. Oh, I'm really tired. Whoa, stop. Well, I've got a problem. Wait a minute. Okay. I I exercise throughout the day a fairly consistent sensitivity
Mm.
to my own internal dialogue. All right. And I just catch myself when I feel that dialogue is moving in an undesirable direction. Uh, so that's really how I'm trying to be healthy in the sense that you're describing. Then there's the exercise and the diet and the hydration. This is my herbal tea that I've been
Love
sipping
it.
ever since we got home. There's all those practices, um, and they all follow from a particular vibe that I try to maintain. Uh, hope that answers your question.
It does, and it's a beautiful place for us to end because you kind of circle back to one of the misconceptions that you talk about. Like once you have confidence, then it's done. And you're saying, I wrote the book on it, got a PhD around it, and I am still every single day watching myself and playing this game, and I am in the game.
Yeah, that's a really important point that gets overlooked in our sort of happily ever after
Hmm.
storybook culture. They ain't no happily ever after for confidence. It's an ongoing, as one West Point cadet put it, Doc, it's a war of attrition. There's no, there's no decisive victory you can win. There is no, formal surrender by the enemies of your confidence. It's this constant insurgency, and you're going to have to be accepting that as a challenge and be dealing with it for as long as you're in the game. I suppose at some point you go out, they set you out to pasture, and it don't matter anymore what you think. But until such time, your confidence is fragile. You got to take care of it. Uh, and I hope that your listeners have picked up a couple of things here in this conversation that will help them build it and protect it, and build it and protect it, and build it and protect it.
Over and over again. Absolutely. This has been amazing. This is a conversation that I've wanted to have for a very, very long time. And for anyone who has not read The Confident Mind, I highly recommend it. I've scribbled all throughout it, and I'm going to go back and read it again and make sure that I'm following and learning from this. It's an amazing read, and it has been uh, just an honor to speak with you
Oh, thank
and
you.
to learn about confidence and even it's just even beyond confidence really, right, and building this on purpose one rep at a time over and over again. So for anyone here who would like to read it, this Confident Mind is available where books are sold. We also you can go to www.natezinsser.com. And also, Dr. Z has given us his email. So if you'd like to email him directly, it's nate.zinsser, Zinsser, at gmail.com. If you would like to work with him, and I highly encourage it. I'm thinking about doing that myself. And I just wanted to say thank you again, Dr. Zinsser, for being here. This has been an amazing experience. Thank you.
Thank you for the privilege of being on your show and the privilege of meeting your audience. Hope everybody
Absolutely.
can benefit from it.
Thank you. They will, for sure. I know I will. Take care. Thank you.